to today's show. I just saw this on the channel Millions Will Rise. I'll leave a link up below. He reported on this, and then I looked into it. This might be the most absurd thing that I've ever seen in my life. And I'm not kidding. I'm not being sarcastic or over the top. Get this. A Texas city is requiring victims from Hurricane Harvey to pledge to Israel if they want to get financial relief. I kid you not. A Texas city has required residents who are seeking government disaster relief funds in the wake of Hurricane Harvey to pledge not to boycott Israel. Huh? I mean, what does that have to do with anything? It amazes me still how sound asleep people are, especially Christians with Israel. How many people message me about it saying, I've got to correct myself with Israel because they can't seem to understand that it's Rothschild-owned Israel. It's their Israel. It's the synagogue of Satan's Israel now. And they're sitting here saying, if people want relief, financial relief, they have to pledge not to boycott Israel. The city of Dickinson, about 30 miles south of Houston, posted grant applications for anyone seeking money for repairs after the Category 4 storm. Local officials say the pro-Israel clause is required under a Texas state law enacted earlier this year. This is unbelievable. The application has drawn a strong rebuke from free speech activists. In the 4-page recovery aid application posted on the city's website, a section reads, quote, by executing this agreement below, the applicant verifies that the applicant, 1, does not boycott Israel, and 2, will not boycott Israel during the term of this agreement. The provision stems from a law barring the state from entering a contract with any business unless it does not boycott Israel. Funny to me, and so many Christians are asleep to this, right? And they're like, oh man, they're really destroying Christianity. We have to be, the world is satanic. We have to be pro-Israel. Why would they put a clause like this in here? I mean, people just are so blinded by what's going on. This is one of the most unbelievable ha's that I've ever seen in my life. These businesses cannot boycott Israel. These people can't get financial relief unless they promise and sign an agreement to never boycott Israel. It says boycotting Israel includes any action intended to penalize, inflict economic harm on, or limit commercial relations specifically with Israel, according to this law. The law, which is known as anti-BDS, was signed by Republican Governor Greg Abbott in May. Anti-Israel policies are anti-Texas policies, and we will not tolerate such actions against an important ally? How are people not seeing this? This is frightening. Remember, folks, in America, Israel comes before America. Yet the Christians still think that they're talking about God's people and Israel. I mean, it's amazing, the dumbing down. Because it goes across Christian channels and Christian truthers too. Constantly just not getting it. Yeah, they're doing all of this stuff for God's people. They want to make sure that nobody boycotts or goes against God's chosen people, Israel. Because they care so much about Christians. That's why they mock Jesus Christ every chance they get. That's why they ban Bibles, burn Bibles, won't allow Bibles to be read in school, won't allow people to quote the Bible publicly, won't allow you to have a Bible verse on your desk at a job, and they're discharged members of the military if they go around telling other people the good news about salvation through Jesus Christ. It says the American Civil Liberties Union criticized the city for the requirement, saying it was an egregious violation of free speech rights under the First Amendment. It says the First Amendment protects Americans' right to boycott, and the government cannot condition hurricane relief, or any other public benefit on a commitment to refrain from protected political expression, said the legal director of ACLU's Texas chapter. Texas is not the only state to require this provision. The ACLU is suing on behalf of a public school teacher in Kansas over a similar anti-BDS law. Hurricane Harvey made landfall on August 25th and was the first of a series of hurricanes to hit the Gulf. And it just goes on to give statistics in regards to the damage and everything that went on there. So, folks, I ask you this. If you're somebody who is a Christian, who listens to a lot of these types of channels like mine and others, how in the world can you think that society is so satanic, they're coming for Christians, they're going against Christians, they're putting laws in place that you can't speak against Israel? And you think that that's because they're trying to protect God's chosen people? Hello? This is unbelievable. What does one have to do with the other? So these people who, pretty much were victimized by weaponized weather from their own government, the government saying, well, we'll throw you a bone, we won't fix your house completely, we'll give you some government funding, only, here's the dangling carrot, only if you support Israel. What? Huh? What does that have to do with anything? Right? Shouldn't people just be going, what does that have to do with anything? I mean, look at my channel. I can't talk about any of this stuff. It's hate speech. I'm not even saying anything bad. Right? I'm not saying anything hateful, anything discriminatory. I'm just pointing out my views in the nicest way I possibly can about what I believe is going on there. And the videos get flagged and taken down, even for mentioning the word. That's how insane this is. That's how big they want this covered up. You can talk about all sorts of stuff. You can talk about any religion, anyone. You can make fun of God. You can make fun of Jesus. All these people do all that stuff. But if you question nothing anti-Semitic, nothing hateful, not even talking about the Holocaust or any of that stuff, just talking about and saying the name Israel and showing that we have a country here who puts Israel's interests first, just like the whole world puts Israel's interests first. And guess what? It's not because they care so much about God's chosen people. It's not because they care about Jesus. Okay? This is part of the New World Order plan. And you can see right there a clear violation of one's right to free speech, to protest, right? How many things have I gotten blocked talking about, speaking against it? They can go out and protest whatever they want. They protest, they create these fake race war protests, right? Ask a question about any of this stuff, and you're in violation of being a bigot. No matter what, no matter if the question is even nice, even if you're on the other team's side, if you're working for the New World Order, they don't want to hear the word ushered unless it's something massively supportive. Any question at all, and you're done. So this is just people who go through, their own government creating weaponized weather on them. And this is the loophole in the contract to get government aid. And nobody's raising their eyebrows going, what? How are they even connected? What does one have to do with the other? Right? What did you think? Well, where's this money? Is this money coming from people's tax money? What government agency is responsible? No. They're just like, oh, it doesn't matter. Just, we have to sign a contract here that says you won't boycott Israel. Otherwise, we'll throw you in a FEMA camp. Because what happens if they break that? Right? What if they break that agreement? What if one of them starts a YouTube channel asking questions about it and they say, oh, okay, well, you broke it. Now we're not going to give you any finances anymore and we're going to throw you in jail. That's how crazy this is. This has to be one of the most mind-blowing things that I've seen in a really long time. It makes no sense. It's so ridiculous that it should wake up so many. Now, again, this isn't going to get national news. This isn't going to get headline news. Because then people are on the net, if it ever hit the mainstream media, they would go, well, what's the problem? What's the problem with that? You know, why do they, you know, need to boycott it? They should support it. We all should. Huh? Right? That's the narrative they would spin, and everybody would go, yeah, you're right, we all should. I mean, why would you boycott it? Because you can't have an opinion that's negative against Israel. And again, it's not because they care about God's chosen people. They don't care about us. They don't care about Jesus. They don't care. They hate us. They detest us. This is all part of the psyop. So remember, folks, if you get in a hurricane and your house gets destroyed, maybe a blizzard, tsunami, you name it, you'll get small funding from the government. In return, you can never go against Israel. How about that? And they think we're all crazy. They call us anti-Semitic. Well, why are you forcing that on people then? If this is a country that's about free speech? Pretty crazy stuff. I thank you for listening to today's show. God bless all of you and your families.